So, is a simple change in the law enough, or is Rishi Sunak's Rwanda plan now dead in the water? Let's speak to Baroness Foster of Oxton for reaction. Baroness Foster, you're not happy about this decision by the Supreme Court, are you?
No, I'm not. I'm absolutely furious. We always knew, I think it was going to be a challenge from even before they talked about Rwanda, when we were having horrendous problems trying to deport people who we actually knew about, who'd been released from prison, who'd been, spent time being sentenced for sort of rape and murder. And then the aircraft didn't go because the human rights lawyers were in there. Obviously, this is now a couple of years down the line, and there is a real oxymoron here, because here we have a court case which has been brought about. One of those that has pushed for this is the Civil Service Union. And of course, civil servants are bound by their codes of practice to remain politically neutral. So then you've got to ask yourself, what's actually happening in the Home Office? So as I said, I'm absolutely furious. We are a very generous country. And when we look at people from Ukraine, Syria, Afghanistan, Iraq, Hong Kong, we really are very, very supportive. But I think the public are absolutely sick and tired of this. This is going against the will of the people. In our 2019 manifesto, we said we will deal with this. We know there's probably been about 1 million people, including obviously legitimate people who have come here over the last 3 years. Schools are under pressure. The health service is under pressure. Housing is under pressure. And all we're doing is sitting in the House of Lords day after day, while we, of course, we're not a Conservative majority in the House of Lords, but we go through the debates. The same people in the opposition put down more amendments, or the same amendments, spend hours trying to talk all of it out. Goes back to the Commons. They ignore what the Commons have said, which is obviously the supreme chamber here. And we go over it all again, and it'll carry on next week. Meanwhile, we have this trade in human misery, and we have people who are multimillionaires on the backs of it.
Yes, Baroness Foster, do you think the Rwanda plan is salvageable?
Well, it should be. I mean, there are people from Denmark, Norway, the UNHCR. There are people in Rwanda who are living perfectly well. Of course, years ago, Rwanda was one of those countries, and I, for 5 years, was on the Africa, Caribbean, Pacific Joint Parliamentary Assembly in my first mandate as a member of the European Parliament. And there are challenging countries, but they've really got past a lot of that. And they even have people in their government who are actually former refugees, who have now made a life in Rwanda. So maybe it's not perfect, but it's certainly a damn sight better than probably some of the places some of these people have come from.
Baroness Foster, what would you say to those who argue that the Rwanda plan is unworkable, it's expensive, and that it's cruel? On last night's BBC Question Time programme, the presenter asked for a show of hands, those in support of the Rwanda policy, and no hands were raised.
Well, I would expect nothing less from Question Time, frankly. I think also people feel intimidated. You see it on Twitter, don't you? And you'll get people who are anonymous, and they will say what they really think. I mean, we might like what they think, or we mightn't like what they think. But people feel intimidated sometimes, particularly when they're sitting in a room. You wouldn't, and I wouldn't, for example. We'd go, this is our position. But it's very, very difficult on sensitive issues for a lot of people because they feel very, very concerned, and they'll feel quite afraid to do that. But we know the vast majority of people want us to deal with this. They have no issue over Rwanda. And as I said, this is undermining the will of the people. It's undermining the voters of this country that expect the government of the day, which is us, to actually do the best we can. And they also expect the opposition to be constructive, because this is about the good of the nation. This is about the security of the nation. We don't even know who some of these people are coming across on boats. They dispose of their identification. We already have, special services that are having to track people who are terrorists, frankly, in this country. And yet what we do, we're welcoming. There are people here welcoming people. They have no idea where they've come from.